Look at this nappy-headed princess thinking she can fly first class, looking like a street rat. Linda Harrison's scissors sliced through Zara Thompson's natural hair as two male employees pinned her arms to the gate chair. Chunks of black curls hit the terminal floor while passengers formed a circle. Phones recording, some cheering. Cut it all off. Bet she smells like coconut oil and attitude. Mark Peterson laughed, deliberately stepping on her scattered business cards. Ryan Foster zoomed his live stream camera inches from Zara's face. "Y'all seeing this entitled ghetto queen getting humbled?" A woman in the crowd shouted. "Should have stayed in your lane, honey." Zara's Cartier watch glinted as her hands remained folded. Her voice cut through the mockery like silk over steel. "Continue, please." The crowd roared approval. They thought they were witnessing justice. Have you ever been so publicly degraded that you questioned whether respect still exists for women like us? The scissors hadn't stopped. Linda Harrison examined her handiwork with the satisfaction of a corrections officer, running her fingers through what remained of Zara's hair. "We're not done yet. This needs to be properly fixed. Ma'am, your natural hair violates our grooming standards," she announced loudly enough for the growing crowd. "This is a family airline, not some urban fashion show." Linda's voice carried the authority of 15 years enforcing company policy. "Sweetheart, maybe try looking like a professional businesswoman next time you fly." Mark Peterson stepped forward, his security badge glinting as he positioned himself behind Zara's chair. "Black women always think they can get away with anything. Should have straightened that mess before leaving the house." His large hands gripped the headrest. "Hold still, princess. Professional haircut time." Ryan Foster adjusted his phone angle. The company live stream now showing 847 viewers. "Y'all see this entitled princess? I think the rules don't apply to her." He zoomed in on the uneven patches where Linda had cut. Getting the full salon treatment at the airport. This is what happens when they don't know their place. The terminal's 6:52 p.m. boarding announcement echoed overhead. Flight 4847 to New York. Final boarding in 28 minutes. Zara's boarding pass lay scattered among the hair clippings. The 1A first class designation barely visible under Mark's boot. A woman in the crowd shouted encouragement. "Make it shorter. She looks ridiculous. Give her a buzz cut." Another passenger laughed, holding up his phone to record. Finally, someone put these women in their place. Linda retrieved a smaller pair of scissors from her supervisor toolkit. "Let's make this really clean. Can't you represent our airline looking like you stuck your finger in an electrical socket?" She grabbed another section of Zara's hair, the sound of cutting metal sharp against the terminal's ambient noise. Zara's phone buzzed insistently against her lap. The screen showed Executive Assistant Emily for the 14th time. A text preview was visible. "Board meeting Thompson Aerospace Consulting FAA contract review." "Where are you?" "Look at that." Ryan narrated to his live stream audience, which had climbed to 1,247 viewers. Princess thinks she's important. Probably calling Daddy to buy her out of trouble. The comment section flooded with laughing emojis and increasingly crude suggestions about what else should be cut. Mark noticed the scattered business cards mixed with hair clippings on the floor. "Thompson Aviation Solutions," he read mockingly, kicking the Platinum American Express card further away. "Must be one of those fake businesses. Probably sells hair products." The crowd erupted in laughter. A middle-aged businessman in an expensive suit nodded approvingly. My tax dollars probably funded her attitude. About time someone taught these people respect. His wife whispered agreement, filming with her own device. Linda stepped back to admire her work. Zara's hair now visibly uneven with patches missing entirely. There, much more appropriate for our cabin environment. She turned to address the crowd, like a performer taking applause. Company policy clearly states that passengers must maintain professional grooming standards. The gate area had transformed into an impromptu arena. 23 passengers now formed a loose circle, most recording, some offering commentary. A teenage girl live-streamed to her TikTok followers. Airline staff giving free haircuts to difficult passengers. This is wild. Jason Reed, the assistant manager, emerged from the jetway having heard the commotion. His eyes immediately assessed the situation. Passenger restraint, crowd gathering, social media recording. "Ma'am, Harrison is following protocol," he announced, his voice carrying practiced authority. "This gentleman, sorry, this lady needs to comply with our grooming standards or find alternative transportation." "We've been more than reasonable," Jason continued, adjusting his tie as he surveyed the scene. "Miss, perhaps your boyfriend can pick you up and take you shopping for appropriate attire, or maybe a salon visit." His condescending smile drew approving nods from male passengers. Zara's Cartier watch caught the light as she slowly raised her hand to check the time. The movement was so calm, so deliberate that several people stopped recording to watch. Her voice, when it came, was silk over steel. "Continue, please. I'm learning quite a lot about your company culture." Ryan's live stream showed her face in close-up, the camera capturing her eerily composed expression despite the assault. Look at this attitude, even getting a free haircut and still acting superior. The viewer count hit 2,047, with Toftuo's grooming gate beginning to trend locally. Linda reached for electric clippers from her maintenance kit. "Let's finish this properly. Can't have her boarding half done." The buzzing sound made several passengers cheer. "Shave it all," someone called out. "Bald is beautiful," another added, sparking more laughter. Mark's grip tightened on the chair as Linda approached with the clippers. "This is what happens when you think you're better than everyone else," he muttered. "Just loud enough for the cameras to catch." Zara's phone showed 47 missed calls now. Her screen lit up with a Bloomberg notification. Thomson Aviation stock up 12% on federal contract news. The text was visible for a brief moment before Ryan's camera angle shifted. The business cards scattered among the hair clippings told a story no one was reading. CEO Thomson Aviation Solutions, Federal Aviation Consulting, FAA Senior Advisor. They lay like evidence in a crime scene that hadn't been recognized yet. 24 minutes until departure. The countdown had begun, but not the one anyone expected. The electric clippers hummed to life in Linda's hands at exactly 7:01 p.m. 19 minutes until departure, but the crowd had no intention of letting this entertainment end early. Finish the job properly. Jason Reed commanded his assistant manager authority, lending official weight to the spectacle. "Can't have her boarding half done. Company standards must be maintained." The clippers bit into what remained of Zara's hairline. More black curls joined the growing pile around her feet, mixing with scattered platinum credit cards and business documents. Ryan's livestream peaked at 3,247 viewers as he provided live commentary. Airport barbershop in full effect. This is better than reality TV. A betting pool spontaneously formed among the passengers. $20 says they shave it completely, called out a man in a Cubs jersey. "I'll take that bet," replied a woman with designer luggage. 50 says they leave her with a buzz cut. Money changed hands as phones continued recording from every angle. The hashtags multiplied across social platforms. Airport barbershop trending nationally. The grooming justice climbing fast. Ohanarks entitled Princess gaining momentum. Comments flooded in faster than Ryan could read them aloud. Shave it all. Should have learned respect. Finally, some accountability. Linda worked methodically, the clippers leaving nearly bald patches. There we go. Much more civilized. She held up clumps of Zara's natural hair like trophies. This is what professionalism looks like, ladies and gentlemen. 2 TSA agents materialized through the crowd, summoned by Jason's radio call. "We've got a disruptive female passenger," he explained to Agent Ramirez, whose hand instinctively moved toward his restraints, refusing to comply with grooming standards, creating a disturbance. "Ma'am, you need to cooperate," Ramirez said, misreading the situation entirely. His partner, Agent Jenkins, positioned himself to block any escape route. Though Zara hadn't moved from her seat, the crowd's energy intensified. A businessman shouted, "Maybe now she'll learn some humility." His wife added, "These women think they can do whatever they want." About time someone stood up to them. Airport police arrived at 7:05 p.m., called for a hysterical female passenger causing public disruption. Officer Harrison surveyed the scene. One black woman sitting calmly, while airline employees groomed her surrounded by an enthusiastic crowd documenting everything. "What seems to be the problem here?" Harrison asked Jason, completely bypassing Zara. "The passenger refused to comply with appearance standards," Jason explained smoothly. "We've been trying to help her meet our requirements, but she's been uncooperative." Mark Peterson laughed, sweeping more cut hair with his boot. "Look at this mess. Probably the first haircut she's had in months. We're doing her a favor." The crowd laughed appreciatively at his wit. Linda stepped back, surveying her work with professional pride. Zara's scalp showed through in multiple places, the remaining hair choppy and uneven. "Perfect. Now you look like you belong in coach, not first class." A teenage influencer had arrived, drawn by the trending hashtags. "OMG, guys, this is insane. She broadcast to her 50,000 followers. They're literally giving this woman a reality check haircut. This is going to break the internet." The betting pool expanded. How much shorter will they go? A razor? Should we start a collection for a wig? Laughter echoed through the gate area as more passengers abandoned their own flights to watch. Zara's phone showed 63 missed calls now. The screen displayed a cascade of notifications. Board meeting in 2 hours. Federal contract signing delayed. Senator's office requesting status update. Each message disappeared quickly as new calls came in. Ryan zoomed in on her face for his live stream audience. "Look at this expression, still acting like she's royalty. Even bald, these women think they're special." The viewer count hit 4,100 with Foghogger Grooming Gate officially trending nationwide. A woman in Lululemon held up her phone triumphantly. "I'm posting this everywhere. Finally, someone is holding these people accountable for their attitude." Her video already had 500 shares in 3 minutes. Jason checked his watch. 7:08 p.m. 12 minutes remaining, people. Let's wrap this up professionally. He turned to Zara with exaggerated patience. "Miss, you now meet our appearance standards. We're prepared to offer you a $300 voucher for tomorrow's flight, plus a complimentary grooming kit to maintain this look." The crowd burst into applause. Several passengers shouted approval. Generous offer. Take the deal, more than she deserves. Linda produced a small hand mirror from her toolkit. "Would you like to see the improvement?" She held it up mockingly, angling it so the cameras could capture Zara's reaction to her destroyed hair. Mark stepped closer, his boots crunching on the scattered business cards and hair. "Come on, princess. Even you have to admit this is better, more honest, less pretentious." He kicked at the pile of her belongings. "Maybe now you'll think twice before acting superior." The pile on the floor told a story the crowd refused to read. Hair mixed with documents bearing federal seals, a Black American Express card, and business cards reading CEO. But entertainment value trumped investigation. Airport security had cordoned off the area, not to protect Zara, but to manage the growing crowd of spectators. The scene had become Gate B12's main attraction, with passengers from other flights arriving to witness the grooming enforcement. Social media exploded across platforms. The story spread with hashtags, Bumbuck Airport Justice. Grooming Policy. Attitude Adjustment. Local news stations picked up the feed. It was becoming the feel-good story of the day. Entitled Passenger Learns Humility. Zara slowly raised her hand to touch what remained of her hair. The gesture was so simple, so human that a few passengers in the back began to look uncomfortable, but the majority continued cheering. 12 minutes, Jason announced again. Final boarding for Flight 447. Miss, what's your decision? The business cards lay scattered like confetti, unread. The phone continued buzzing with increasing urgency, and in the growing pile of Zara's destroyed hair, evidence was accumulating that would soon change everything. The crowd waited for her surrender. They expected tears, apologies, and gratitude for the lesson in humility. They had no idea they were about to witness the most expensive haircut in aviation history. At exactly 7:09 p.m., with 11 minutes until departure, Zara Thompson did something no one expected. She smiled. Not the broken smile of defeat. Not the nervous smile of someone trying to appease a mob. This was the smile of a chess master who had just realized her opponent had walked directly into checkmate. "Thank you all for this educational experience," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet gate area. "I'd like to make one phone call now. Please give me exactly 60 seconds. The crowd leaned in, phones still recording, expecting to witness the final humiliation. A desperate call to a lawyer, a boyfriend, maybe even her mother. Ryan adjusted his live stream angle to capture what he assumed would be her breakdown. A businessman shouted mockingly, "Calling Daddy to come save you?" The crowd erupted in fresh laughter, cameras focusing on Zara's face for the anticipated tears. Zara speed dialed a number labeled simply Executive Command. "Emily," she said calmly, her voice on speaker for everyone to hear. "Initiate Code 7. Authorization Thompson Alpha 7. The response came immediately, crisp and professional. "Understood, Miss Thompson. Full executive override commencing. Federal investigation protocol is now active. All systems responding." Linda laughed nervously. Look at this act, calling her assistant to pretend she's important. But her tablet screen flickered, then displayed a message in red letters. "Executive authority override. Thompson protocol active. All operations suspended." Jason's radio crackled to life. "All management report to the Crisis Command Center immediately. Code 7 federal protocol in effect." This is not a drill. Ryan's confident livestream narration cut off mid-word as his phone screen went black, displaying service terminated. Federal investigation protocol. Evidence preservation mode. What the hell? Ryan stared at his dead device. Around him, other passengers found their recording devices similarly disabled, error messages replacing their entertainment. The airport PA system echoed across Terminal B. "Attention! Code 7. Executive protocol in effect. All gate operations suspended pending federal oversight review. Security teams report to stations immediately." The crowd's energy shifted instantly from celebration to confusion. Mark Peterson looked around nervously, as phones that had been recording now showed federal override messages. The festive atmosphere evaporated like steam. "This is some kind of joke," Linda muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. Her supervisor's confidence was cracking as airport security began moving toward their position with new urgency. Zara stood slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. She brushed hair clippings from her cream silk blouse with the precision of someone accustomed to command. From her scattered belongings, she retrieved items the crowd had ignored in their entertainment frenzy. First, a business card that had been trampled underfoot. Zara Thompson, CEO, Thompson Aviation Solutions, Federal Aviation Consulting. The businessman who had been laughing loudest suddenly went quiet. "Wait, is that real?" Then an ID badge with her photograph and federal seal. FAA Senior Compliance Advisor, Department of Transportation, Level 7 clearance. Jason's phone rang with the distinctive tone of executive emergency. He stared at the caller ID. CEO Anderson, urgent. His hand trembled slightly as he answered. Finally, Zara held up a black American Express card with federal contractor printed beneath her name, along with a number that made the remaining airline employees recognize the level of authority they had just assaulted. Linda's face drained of color as the full realization hit. "Ma'am, we had no idea. Oh God, what have we done?" "Miss Harrison," Zara said conversationally, her voice carrying a new authority that made everyone unconsciously step back. "I've been flying with your airline for 18 years, both as a passenger and as the federal consultant who designed your company's current bias detection system." The crowd that had been cheering minutes earlier now stood in stunned silence. Several passengers began backing away, suddenly understanding they had witnessed something far more serious than entertainment. "I've brought $4.7 million annually in federal contracts to your organization," Zara continued, gathering more scattered documents. Each paper she retrieved seemed to add weight to the growing horror on the employees' faces. Mark Peterson took several involuntary steps backward, his earlier swagger completely gone. We were just following policy. We didn't know." "You assaulted me," Zara stated matter-of-factly, touching the destroyed remains of her hair. "You humiliated me based on my race and gender, and broadcast it for entertainment, all while I was traveling on official federal business with classified security clearance." Ryan's face had gone pale as he stared at his disabled phone. The live stream. Oh, federal evidence. Jason ended his phone call, his face ashen. Multiple airline executives were already emerging from offices throughout Terminal B, summoned by emergency protocols that hadn't been activated in the airport's history. Airport security suddenly shifted posture entirely, recognizing federal authority. The TSA agents who had been prepared to restrain Zara now looked like they wanted to disappear into the terminal walls. "Every word, every gesture, every laugh," Zara said, her voice never rising above conversational level, "has been recorded by federal civil rights enforcement equipment installed throughout this terminal. This wasn't just assault. It was assault on a federal contractor during classified official travel." From her briefcase, the one Mark had kicked across the floor, Zara retrieved a laptop. The screen displayed real-time data analytics that made Jason's remaining color disappear. "Automatic federal investigation triggers activated. Civil Rights Division notified." Chief Legal Officer Elizabeth Grant arrived at a dead run, her heels clicking frantically across the terminal floor. Behind her came VP of Operations Michael Carter and a crisis management team, whose expressions suggested they understood the magnitude of what had occurred. "Gentlemen? Ladies?" Zara said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to briefing senators and cabinet members. "Your airline isn't just my client. You're my primary case study for the new Federal Aviation Anti-Discrimination Protocol." The hair clippings scattered across the floor, which the crowd had treated as entertainment debris, now looked exactly like what they were, evidence at a federal crime scene. CEO Victoria Anderson materialized with a security detail, her face reflecting the dawning realization of what her employees had just done to one of the federal government's most influential aviation consultants. "But I haven't revealed the most important detail yet," Zara said, her smile returning. "Phase 2 of my federal investigation begins now." CEO Victoria Anderson arrived at Gate B12 at 7:15 p.m., 5 minutes past Flight 447's original departure time. Her entourage included Chief Legal Officer Elizabeth Grant, VP of Operations Michael Carter, Crisis Management Director Sophia Lee, and a team of corporate attorneys whose grim expressions told the story. This was no ordinary passenger complaint. The gate area had transformed into an impromptu federal crime scene. Airport security had cordoned off the area with yellow tape, not to contain Zara, but to preserve evidence. The scattered hair clippings, trampled business cards, and disabled recording devices created a tableau of corporate catastrophe that would soon appear in federal court documents. Victoria surveyed the scene with practiced crisis assessment. Destroyed hair covering the floor like black snow, scissors abandoned beside federal contractor credentials, and her 4 employees standing like defendants awaiting sentencing. The crowd of passengers who had been cheering minutes earlier now pressed against security barriers, their phones still disabled by federal override protocols. "Miss Thompson," Victoria began, her voice carefully modulated to project authority while acknowledging the precarious situation. "As one businesswoman to another, I'm certain we can resolve this matter professionally and privately." Zara opened her laptop with deliberate precision. The screen casting blue light across the evidence-strewn floor, real-time data scrolled across multiple windows, federal contractor databases, civil rights violation protocols, and investigation trigger systems all flashing active status. "Victoria, you have exactly 10 minutes to demonstrate corporate accountability before I activate Phase 2 of the federal investigation," Zara said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to briefing cabinet members. "But first, let me clarify something. This isn't a negotiation, it's a federal compliance presentation." Elizabeth Grant stepped forward. 23 years of legal training overriding panic. "Miss Thompson, we deeply regret any misunderstanding that may have occurred during what appears to have been a miscommunication regarding company grooming policies." "There's no misunderstanding," Zara interrupted, her voice cutting through corporate euphemisms like surgical steel. "There's documented federal contractor assault, systematic civil rights violations captured on multiple recording devices, and approximately 6 different federal investigation triggers that activated the moment your employees decided to forcibly cut my hair while broadcasting it for public entertainment." She turned the laptop screen toward the assembled executives, revealing a comprehensive data dashboard that made Elizabeth physically step backward. The metrics displayed in stark numerical reality: $4.7 million in annual federal consulting revenue from Thomson Aviation Solutions, 31 major airlines currently implementing Thomson's bias detection protocols, 89% success rate in federal discrimination case prosecutions, 67% of aviation discrimination incidents involving intersectional bias targeting women of color. "Your airline isn't just my client," Zara continued, touching the destroyed remnants of her hair with calculated impact. "You're my primary laboratory for federal anti-discrimination research, and this assault just provided the Department of Transportation with a perfect case study in intersectional discrimination, complete with real-time documentation and crowd participation." Michael Carter whispered frantically to Victoria. "She designed our current bias detection system. She has administrative access to every incident report, employee complaint, and discrimination case from the past 18 months. If she runs a comprehensive audit," Victoria's face paled as the implications crystallized. "A federal investigation would expose not just this incident, but potentially hundreds of unreported discrimination cases buried in company databases." Linda Harrison stood frozen beside the abandoned scissors, her supervisor's confidence replaced by dawning terror. "We were just enforcing grooming standards according to company policy. I didn't know she was a federal contractor." "A federal contractor with Level 7 security clearance traveling on classified Department of Transportation business," Zara corrected, her eyebrow arching with lethal precision. "Ms. Harrison, ignorance of federal law isn't a defense in civil rights prosecution. Assault with forced haircutting of a federal contractor during official travel constitutes multiple felonies under 18 U.S.C. Section 245, Title 7, and the Federal Contractor Protection Act." Ryan Foster clutched his disabled phone like a lifeline. His earlier swagger completely evaporated. The live stream was just standard company social media documentation. I was recording policy enforcement for training purposes. You were broadcasting a federal contractor assault to 3,700 viewers while using company equipment and representing corporate policy, Elizabeth Grant said, her voice hollow with professional recognition of the legal catastrophe that constitutes evidence tampering, civil rights violations, conspiracy to violate federal law, and potential hate crime enhancement charges. Jason Reed's phone rang again. Emergency conference with the board of directors demanding immediate damage assessment. His earlier condescending authority had evaporated entirely, replaced by the terror of someone realizing their career was ending in real time with potential criminal consequences. Mark Peterson attempted damage control. "Ma'am, we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. We were following what we believe to be standard passenger compliance procedures. You physically restrained a federal contractor, participated in an assault with haircutting, and kicked federal documents across a public terminal while encouraging crowd participation in the humiliation," Zara replied, without looking up from her laptop. "Your procedures constitute federal crimes." Zara accessed another screen, displaying federal regulations with surgical precision. The legal citations filled the monitor. Title 7. Civil rights violations. Physical assault based on race and gender characteristics. Federal Aviation Regulations, Section 259.4, Intersectional Discrimination in Passenger Services, Federal Contractor Protection Act, Section 15.7, Assault on Government Personnel During Official Travel, and my personal favorite, 18 U.S.C., Section 245, Federal Hate Crime Statutes for attacks on individuals based on race and gender while engaged in federally protected activities. She paused, allowing the legal weight to settle like concrete. Each violation carries fines up to $250,000 per incident, with potential criminal penalties, including federal prison sentences. Victoria's crisis management training kicked in, recognizing ultimate stakes. "Ms. Thompson, what would constitute an appropriate resolution of this incident that demonstrates our commitment to civil rights compliance?" "I'm not negotiating," Zara replied, her voice maintaining conversational calm while delivering corporate death sentences. "I'm presenting federal compliance requirements. You have 7 minutes remaining to demonstrate good faith cooperation, or I activate Comprehensive Department of Transportation investigation protocols that will examine every discrimination complaint in your company's history." Elizabeth Grant pulled out her legal pad with shaking hands, recognizing ultimatum dynamics that could destroy the corporation. "What are the specific compliance requirements?" Zara's fingers moved across her keyboard with practiced efficiency, pulling up a pre-prepared compliance framework that suggested this confrontation had been anticipated, planned, and legally structured. First, immediate termination with Linda Harrison, Mark Peterson, Jason Reed, and Ryan Foster. No severance packages, no positive employment references, and permanent notation of federal civil rights violations in their employment records accessible to future employers. Linda made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob, her hand instinctively reaching toward her supervisor badge. "Please, I have 3 children and a mortgage. I didn't know she was important. I was just doing my job." "You had 3 children when you decided to assault a federal contractor and broadcast it for entertainment," Zara replied without emotional inflection. "Your ignorance of federal law endangered their financial security, not my response to your criminal behavior. Second, $750,000 in direct settlement for intersectional discrimination and federal contractor assault," she continued. "This figure reflects documented racial bias, gender-based harassment, hair-specific discrimination, and federal contractor status violations. The amount is non-negotiable and represents minimum damages under federal civil rights statutes." Michael Carter's calculator clicked frantically as he computed immediate financial impact. 3.4 of a million was financially manageable, but the precedent and publicity implications were staggering for future cases. Third, mandatory intersectional bias training for all customer-facing employees within 21 days. Not generic diversity sensitivity workshops. Comprehensive intersectional awareness programs focusing specifically on hair-based discrimination, federal contractor identification, and de-escalation techniques. Training must be conducted by certified intersectional bias specialists. Victoria nodded grimly, recognizing the training costs would approach 6 figures company-wide, but federal investigation would cost tens of millions in legal fees alone. Fourth, immediate implementation of Thomson Aviation Solutions' intersectional dignity protocol system-wide across all airports and customer interaction points. Full installation with federal compliance monitoring for 36 months, including real-time bias detection algorithms and quarterly federal reporting requirements. Elizabeth recognized the strategic genius. Zara was making her own company the mandatory compliance solution, ensuring substantial long-term revenue while solving the discrimination problem with her proprietary technology. Fifth, public apology from you personally, Victoria, addressing both racial and gender discrimination within 12 hours. The statement must acknowledge that hair-based assault constitutes federal civil rights violations and commit to industry-leading intersectional protection standards with specific policy changes. The assembled executives exchanged meaningful glances. Public admission of federal civil rights violations would trigger immediate shareholder lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny from multiple agencies, and devastating competitive disadvantage in federal contracting. Sixth, comprehensive promotion pipeline program for women of color in management positions with mandatory annual reporting to federal oversight agencies, public transparency requirements, and measurable advancement metrics, plus mandatory external intersectional bias audits by women of color, led consulting firms with results publicly reported, and corrective action plans filed with federal agencies. Victoria attempted final negotiation despite recognizing futility. Ms. Thompson, some of these requirements exceed normal settlement parameters and establish precedents that could impact industry-wide practices. Perhaps we could discuss modified terms that achieve your objectives, while Zara's laptop chimed with an incoming federal call that silenced all conversation. That would be the Department of Transportation Civil Rights Office. They've been monitoring this situation since Code 7 activation 37 minutes ago. She answered the speaker with deliberate transparency. DOT Civil Rights Division. This is Director Lopez. Ms. Thompson, we've completed preliminary evidence review of the federal contractor assault incident. Investigation protocols are standing by for your authorization. The federal voice continued with bureaucratic precision that chilled corporate blood. We have documented assault of a Level 7 federal contractor, evidence tampering via social media broadcasting, systematic civil rights violations, and potential hate crime enhancement factors. Federal prosecutors recommend immediate escalation to comprehensive investigation with criminal referral unless full compliance is achieved within 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Victoria's professional facade finally cracked completely. Ms. Thompson, we accept all terms unconditionally and immediately. How do we prevent federal investigation escalation? You don't prevent it, Zara replied, closing the laptop with finality that echoed through the terminal. Phase 2. Federal investigation cannot be stopped. It's mandatory protocol for federal contractor assault. But demonstrated good faith compliance might influence the scope and severity of consequences during prosecution recommendations. The hair scattered around her feet told the complete story. What began as crowd entertainment had become the most expensive haircut in corporate history. At 7:45 p.m., exactly 36 minutes after the first scissor cut, Linda Harrison, Mark Peterson, Jason Reed, and Ryan Foster received their termination notices. Security escorted them from the premises while federal agents collected their company devices as evidence. Linda's supervisor badge, which she had worn with such authority, now lay in an evidence bag marked Federal Contractor Assault, Exhibit C. The termination process unfolded with corporate efficiency that contrasted sharply with the chaos of their assault. Human Resources Director Janet Morrison read the charges aloud. Immediate termination with cause for federal civil rights violations, assault of a federal contractor, evidence tampering, and conduct detrimental to company reputation and federal compliance status. Linda clutched her personal belongings in a cardboard box, tears streaming down her face. 18 years with this company, she whispered to no one in particular. 18 years, and it ends because I cut some woman's hair. Oh, you didn't cut some woman's hair, Elizabeth Grant corrected with legal precision. You assaulted a federal contractor's hair while she was traveling on classified government business. There's a significant legal distinction that federal prosecutors will explain during your criminal proceedings. Ryan Foster's final company livestream had been viewed 47,000 times before federal override shut it down. Now, that same video would serve as primary evidence in federal court. I was just trying to go viral, he muttered, his social media career ending before it began. Salt. I didn't know it would go this viral. Mark Peterson handed over his security credentials with shaking hands. 23 years in airport security, and his career ended with federal assault charges. What do I tell my wife, my kids? How do I explain that I'm facing federal prison for cutting hair? Jason Reed, whose assistant manager position had given him confidence to escalate the situation, now faced the complete destruction of his aviation career. No airline would hire him with federal civil rights violations on his record. This is insane, he kept repeating. Over hair? This is all over hair. At 8:30 p.m., CEO Victoria Anderson stood before a hastily assembled press conference. Her prepared statement representing the most expensive apology in airline history. The conference room at O'Hare buzzed with reporters who had descended like vultures, sensing the blood in the water of a major civil rights story. Tonight, our airline failed catastrophically, Victoria began, her voice steady despite the corporate disaster unfolding around her. We failed Ms. Zara Thompson, a valued federal contractor and respected member of the aviation community. More importantly, we failed women of color everywhere who deserve dignity and respect when they travel. The statement continued with legal precision crafted by Elizabeth's team. The assault on Ms. Thompson's hair was not a policy enforcement action. It was a violation of her civil rights, her dignity, and federal law. Hair-based discrimination, particularly targeting natural black hair, constitutes racial discrimination and has no place in our industry. Social media exploded within minutes. The apology video garnered 2.3 million views within 6 hours, with Jhor Norhunt hair assault and Torn Thompson case trending nationally. Comments ranged from supportive to skeptical, but the corporate admission of federal civil rights violations sent shockwaves through the aviation industry. Competitor airlines immediately distanced themselves, issuing their own statements about hair discrimination policies. Southwest Airlines announced a comprehensive review of grooming standards. Delta pledged new intersectional bias training. American Airlines quietly contacted Thompson Aviation Solutions about bias detection consulting. By 9:15 p.m., the first emergency bias sensitivity briefing was underway for all O'Hare customer-facing staff. The session, led by Dr. Maya Jackson from the University of Chicago's Civil Rights Institute, focused specifically on hair-based discrimination and federal contractor identification. Natural black hair is not unprofessional, Dr. Jackson explained to the assembled employees, many still processing the evening's events. Touching, cutting, or demanding alteration of someone's hair constitutes assault, regardless of company policy, and assaulting federal contractors carries enhanced penalties that can destroy careers and companies. The Thompson Protocol, hastily renamed the Thompson Protocol after legal review, was implemented across all airline operations within 72 hours. The real-time bias detection system, ironically designed by Zara's own company, now monitors every customer interaction for discriminatory language, behavior, and policy enforcement. Anonymous reporting apps went live within 48 hours, allowing passengers and employees to document discrimination incidents directly to federal oversight agencies. The first reports came flooding in: hair-based discrimination, accent mockery, name pronunciation bias, and dozens of other intersectional violations that had been routine until federal scrutiny arrived. The Department of Transportation Civil Rights Office opened their comprehensive investigation on schedule, despite the airline's compliance efforts. Director Lopez's team discovered a disturbing pattern: 89 similar incidents involving women of color and company records dating back 18 months, including 23 cases of hair-based discrimination that had been dismissed as grooming policy enforcement. Federal fines totaled $3.2 million. When the full investigation concluded, the consent decree required 5 years of federal monitoring with quarterly reporting on intersectional bias metrics, mandatory promotion targets for women of color, and annual third-party discrimination audits with public reporting requirements. The ripple effects spread throughout the aviation industry like shock waves from an earthquake. Within 6 months, 18 other major airlines had voluntarily adopted Thomson Aviation Solutions' Intersectional Dignity Protocol, recognizing that federal oversight was inevitable and cooperation was preferable to investigation. Congressional hearings on aviation discrimination began 3 weeks later, with Zara serving as the primary expert witness. Her testimony, delivered with the same calm authority she had shown during the assault, transformed federal aviation policy permanently. Hair discrimination is not about grooming standards, she testified before the Senate Commerce Committee. It's about weaponizing beauty standards to exclude and humiliate women of color. When airline employees cut my hair while broadcasting it for entertainment, they weren't enforcing policy. They were conducting a public lynching of my dignity. The hearing room fell silent. Senator Elena Ramirez asked the question everyone was thinking. Ms. Thompson, how do we prevent this from happening to other women? Senator, we mandate respect through technology and accountability. Zara replied, the Thompson Protocol doesn't just detect bias, it creates consequences: real-time federal reporting, automatic investigation triggers, and personal liability for employees who choose discrimination over dignity. The Airline Passenger Dignity Act of 2025 passed Congress with bipartisan support 6 months later. The legislation, directly inspired by Zara's assault, established federal protections for passenger hair, religious dress, accent diversity, and intersectional identity expression. Airlines violating the act faced automatic federal investigation and potential loss of operating licenses. Personal victory came in quieter moments. Zara flew first class to New York 3 days later on the airline's private jet, accompanied by a female crew who apologized repeatedly for their colleagues' behavior. The captain, newly promoted Sofia Ramirez, was the first Latina to command the route, part of the diversity pipeline program Zara had mandated. The legal settlement funds established the Zara Thompson Women of Color Aviation Scholarship, supporting 78 students in their first year. Applications flooded in from young women who saw Zara's story as proof that dignity and expertise could triumph over hatred and ignorance. Speaking engagements at 25 major universities followed, with Zara sharing her methodology. Professional preparation beats emotional reaction every time. They wanted to see me angry, defeated, crying for mercy. Instead, they saw federal authority responding to assault with systematic change. Harvard Business School developed a case study titled Turning Intersectional Humiliation into Industry Transformation, which became required reading in corporate ethics and crisis management courses. The case emphasized how Zara's strategic response achieved more than lawsuits or protests ever could. The intellectual triumph was complete. No violence, no revenge, no personal enrichment. Only expertise, preparation, and legal precision, transforming systematic discrimination into systematic reform. The scissors that had cut her hair became symbols of change, displayed in the Smithsonian's Civil Rights Museum as evidence that individual dignity could reshape entire industries. 6 months after the assault, Zara appeared on the cover of Business Week under the headline, "The CEO Who Changed Aviation." In the photo, her hair was styled in an elegant natural crown, a deliberate reminder that beauty and professionalism weren't defined by white standards. The scattered hair clippings from Gate B12 had grown into a movement that protected millions of travelers from discrimination. What began as entertainment for a cruel crowd had become education for an entire industry. Justice, it turned out, grew best from the seeds of systematic change. 1 year later, Zara Thompson stood before the Senate Aviation Subcommittee, her natural hair styled in an elegant twist that had become her signature look. The woman who had been assaulted with scissors now commanded the attention of lawmakers, industry leaders, and civil rights advocates gathered to celebrate the first anniversary of the Airline Passenger Dignity Act. The Thompson Intersectional Protocol is now active in 94% of major U.S. airports, she testified, her voice carrying the same calm authority that had dismantled corporate arrogance at Gate B12. Discrimination incidents involving women of color have decreased 73% industry-wide, while customer satisfaction scores for minority travelers have increased 31%. The numbers told a story of transformation that began with scattered hair clippings and grew into systematic change. Leadership diversity in aviation had increased 45% for women of color, with many crediting Zara's visibility for inspiring their career pursuits. Senator Davis, the subcommittee chair, asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Ms. Thompson, what would you say to other women facing similar discrimination?" Zara smiled, the expression carrying none of the calculated patience she had displayed during her assault. This was genuine warmth earned through victory. "I would tell them that preparation is more powerful than protest. Expertise is more effective than anger, and systematic change outlasts individual revenge." The Zara Thompson Scholarship Fund had grown beyond aviation, supporting 78 women of color pursuing careers in transportation, technology, and federal service. Each recipient received not just financial assistance, but mentorship from a network of professionals who understood the intersection of excellence and discrimination. Corporate America had taken notice. The Thompson method of strategic response to discrimination was taught in business schools, law schools, and leadership development programs. Companies proactively hire Thompson Aviation Solutions not just for compliance, but for competitive advantage in diversity and inclusion. The documentary, The Cut That Changed Everything, had won 3 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Social Justice Documentary. The film's final scene showed children in schools across America learning about hair diversity and civil rights, with teachers explaining that natural black hair was beautiful, professional, and legally protected. International impact followed domestic transformation. The European Union adopted similar hair discrimination protections, citing the Thompson case as precedent. South Africa strengthened workplace bias regulations. Canada mandated intersectional bias training for federal contractors. A haircut at Chicago O'Hare had triggered global civil rights advancement. Personal fulfillment came through unexpected channels. Zara's TED Talk, The Power of Strategic Dignity, has been viewed 15 million times across platforms. Young women approached her at airports sharing stories of discrimination they had faced and strategies they had learned from her example. "You showed us we don't have to accept disrespect," a college student told her at Reagan National Airport. "You proved that smart women with preparation can change the world." The annual Intersectional Aviation Leadership Conference, hosted by the Women of Color in Aviation Coalition, that Zara founded, drew 5,000 attendees from 47 countries. The conference's mission statement reflected her philosophy, transforming individual dignity into systematic change through professional excellence and strategic advocacy. Linda Harrison had found new employment as a cashier at a suburban grocery store. Her airline career permanently ended by federal civil rights violations. In interviews with local media, she expressed remorse. "I learned too late that a person's hair is part of their identity, their dignity. I wish I could apologize to Miss Thompson personally." Ryan Foster, whose live stream had preserved the evidence of federal contractor assault, now worked in his family's landscaping business. His social media presence focused on civil rights education, using his platform to teach young people about the consequences of discrimination. "I was trying to go viral," he explained in a documentary interview. "I went viral, but not the way I intended." Mark Peterson and Jason Reed faced ongoing civil litigation from other passengers who had experienced discrimination during their tenure. The federal investigation had uncovered patterns of bias that extended far beyond Zara's case. With dozens of victims seeking justice through the legal precedent, her strategic response had established. The transformation was measured not just in policies and statistics, but in culture and consciousness. Airport employees now received annual training on intersectional dignity. Federal contractors traveled with enhanced protections. Women of color reported feeling safer, more respected, and more confident in aviation spaces. The scissors from Gate B12 were displayed in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture alongside Zara's business cards and federal contractor credentials. The exhibit's title captured the essence of her victory from assault to advocacy. How strategic dignity transformed an industry. But the most meaningful change was personal. Zara's hair, grown back into a magnificent natural crown, represented more than aesthetic choice. It symbolized the triumph of authenticity over assimilation, dignity over compliance, and systematic change over individual revenge. Standing before her bathroom mirror each morning, running her fingers through hair that was now legally protected across the transportation industry, Zara reflected on a fundamental truth. Sometimes the most powerful response to hatred was not anger, but architecture. Building systems that prevented others from experiencing the same humiliation. The woman who had been attacked for her hair had used that assault to protect the hair, dignity, and rights of countless others. That was a legacy. That was justice. That was the power of turning personal pain into systematic progress. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. Your dignity matters. Have you witnessed discrimination that could have been prevented by better systems? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience could be the catalyst for the next wave of systematic change. Have you faced intersectional bias for being both a woman and a person of color? Your voice can help others understand that they are not alone, and that strategic response creates lasting impact. Tag a woman of color who needs to see how preparation, professionalism, and persistence can move mountains. Show her that expertise is the ultimate superpower. Subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more accounts of strategic triumph over prejudice, because every story of dignity defended is a blueprint for others to follow. Share this story with everyone who believes that intelligence and preparation can transform injustice into lasting change. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is systematic reform. We rise by lifting each other, especially women who look like us, dream like us, and refuse to accept discrimination as inevitable.